Welcome to the Expansive CEO Podcast. I'm your host, Hannah Chapman, founder of Expansive CEO and X Squared Wealth Planning. Buckle in as we explore how to create true prosperity and build a business and a life that expands beyond yourself and makes a dent in the universe. Welcome, everyone, to this episode of the Expansive CEO Podcast. I'm your host, Hannah Chapman, and today we have a Fireside Chat episode here again with my wonderful executive assistant, Svetlana Lane, who is so good at asking me questions and sharing her story as well. And we're going to talk about navigating relationships and all kinds of relationships today. We've talked about partnerships before in different capacities. We're going to bring in kids and parents, and really focusing on like how human design can help you really navigate those relationships even more graciously and gracefully and intentionally. And as entrepreneurs, really to help avoid burnout. I mean, this is truly a way for us to understand ourselves better, our relationships in our life better, and really bring intention to how we interact with people. If we know this about them, if someone's in your family or if you have a child, right, you can definitely go pull their human design chart. You can go again to Expansive CEO website. Now go right to Expansive CEO. There's a little button that says Discover Your Design. You can click on that as many times as you want. You can put in anyone's information. You can put in your information, your kid's information, your spouse's information, your partner's information, whoever, and you can just keep pulling charts. And so that you can have this information. So if you haven't done that yet, maybe hit pause. If you're in a place where you can hit pause or keep listening, go over to the website, expansiveceo.com, and pull some of the charts for your family members. And I'll bring Svetlana in just a second here. But until then, just so that you can have, the view of here's me, here's my kid, here's my partner, and just see and follow along. And that was what I was going to say. If you don't know the exact time of birth, it can shift if they were born, at 3 a.m. versus 11 p.m. That can be a big difference. So if you know late or early, you can put in an approximation. If you have no idea whatsoever, you can go with noon. It'll just default to noon that day, and it should be pretty close. It can be different still if you find out they were born at like 1 a.m. But noon is usually a good starting point. And Svetlana, you're on mute, so make sure go off of that.
I'm intentionally on mute because I have two dogs around me.
Yes, thank you. But thank you so much for being here again for another fireside chat. So we can talk about
Yes.
all things relationship and how entrepreneurship and human design can all go together with building better relationships.
Yeah, it's so fascinating to me how we talked about before. Oftentimes our lines are, I guess, some of them are filled and some of them are not. And, how other people were meant for community and how other people can complete our charts in a sense, and so I think that's so cool. And so just to continue that theme, I'm just really excited to explore how to navigate those relationships, especially in our personal lives, because those are the most meaningful ones to us, but also the ones that really affect us in our work. And so I guess I first wanted to ask you, how have you seen and how have you helped others, like entrepreneurs, with maybe navigating some of those personal relationships using human design?
Yeah, well, we've talked a whole bunch, so I won't go super far into this, but I mean, one of the easiest wins that you can have is to understand your decision-making authority and your partner's decision-making authority. So whenever I work with a couple in the financial planning process, that's one of the first things that we learn about each person is, are you emotional, sacral, splenic, um, self-projected, ego, or mental authority, or a reflector and have lunar authority? Like, what's each person's decision-making authority? So if you look at your chart, it's going to say either emotional generator or emotional manifestor or splenic projector or sacral. It might say pure, and then that means sacral generator or sacral manifesting generator. So there are all these different options, right? So we've talked about that almost ad nauseum. So we won't go super far into that today, but that is absolutely one of the first places to understand yourself and understand your partner. And what I'm going to add in here is that it's also really empowering to understand if you have children to understand how they make decisions as well.
Mhm.
And so it'll be different if you have a 2-year old versus a 17-year-old, right? Or an adult child who is, in their 20s or 30s or 40s. But still, can you imagine not knowing your child's decision making authority and now they're 35 and you find out they're a splenic authority and you're an emotional authority and you have been trying to get them to make decisions like you for their whole life?
Mhm.
I mean, it's like so interesting to have this information now to like start again. Like I said, literally go to the website right now if you haven't pulled your child's chart. Like, go pull it right now and see how they're wired. Because one of the things that I was thinking of as you were even just asking this question, Svetlana, was, you know, we have, we can think of ourselves as parents. Say, if you're a parent and you have a partner or a co-parent, and you think, well, we're the same set of parents for all of these kids. Whether you have 2 kids, 3 kids, 4 kids, whatever, you're the same set of parents. We treated all our kids the same, so the experience they had is up to them. I didn't believe that from the very beginning. When I had my oldest, Clara, I didn't. I even just with her, like I knew that she needed something different than other kids. Excuse me. But it also was like really clear to me because I had 3 brothers, so there were 4 of us growing up. My husband had a brother and a sister, so there were 3 kids in his family growing up. And like, people are different, and we need to respond to our kids as the people they are, not like their sibling. And I always believed that very deeply. I didn't know about human design, 14 years ago. Um, but now that I do, and now that I've known about it for the last 4 years, I now know Clara is a manifesting generator with emotional authority. Henry is a generator with emotional authority. Both of them have almost all of their centers like lit up. They are very defined, which we can talk about what that means in a second. And then my youngest, Hazel, is a splenic projector, and she has like not very much in her chart defined. Um, and seeing that, I was like, oh, okay, yep, that makes so much sense.
Mhm.
So much sense for even how they're developing from, I think Hazel was 5 at the time when I first learned about her design. So they were like 5, 7, and 9. Now they're 9, almost 10, 12, and 14. And so I've been able to respond to them differently based on who I know they're wired to be.
Mhm.
And even going the other direction, going up, learning that my mom is a self-projected projector, which is a very rare design. It's like 1-ish%, 1 to 2% of the population is a self-projected projector. It's 1% of projectors, which are 20% of the population. So maybe it's like 2%, right? Something like that. Don't math me on that. But learning that about her. as well has just like, it makes so much more sense to me how she moves through the world. And then seeing her again, like I'm an adult, I'm 40, she's 63, I believe, right? Like getting to know that about a person that you love and have known your whole life, but like now, oh, I get to know you as a person. It's
Mhm.
very different.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you think, based on the age of the child, how do they present their charts?
Hmm.
You know what I mean? What I'm trying to ask?
Yeah, yeah, I love
But
that. I love.
5-year-old Hazel versus almost 10-year-old Hazel, how has she grown? How have you seen her kind of hold, how have you been able to hold space for her and let her kind of grow into and shift, and into who her real self is?
Yeah, that's such a good question. So knowing again, so pulling her chart when she was like 5, um, learning that she was a splenic projector, very different from my generator, Henry and Clara. One of the things that we noticed about her from the very beginning, she is very, this is not necessarily a projector thing. This is a Hazel thing.
Yeah.
Or there's other pieces of her chart that tell us this. She's very social. She loves to be around other people. She's very extroverted. And she really does best, truly. Like she thrives the most when she can be doing things, be with others, um, but not in huge groups. So one thing that was really interesting, so 5 years ago, was the COVID pandemic is when that started in March of 2020. And I hadn't found human design just yet. It was a year after. But one of the things that our neighborhood did, we had a lot of kids who were around the same age. They're very small. And our neighborhood was really locked down. Everyone was working from home. And so we decided as a little small community that we would let our kids play together outside. Um, and we would just all be very cautious and let everyone know, like just everyone be really careful. Everyone's masking, everyone's being careful so we can let our little ones play together um, outside. So they kind of ran around in a pack for a while. Amazingly, I don't think anyone got COVID either in like the first year. It was pretty amazing, honestly. But they needed that. Our kids needed that.
Hmm.
And what we started to see with Hazel specifically, when there was a large group, she started having a hard time, like within that large group, large being 5 or 6 kids. And what started happening is she started going off with 1 or 2 kids at a time, and then other, she would have a hard time navigating between different, like this person wants to play with her, this person wants to play with her, not wanting to be mean, not wanting to make anyone feel left out, which is super sweet. And again, developmentally appropriate as well. So a lot of this is really in tandem with child development, normal childhood development.
Hmm.
But what we noticed, especially what I noticed, was that she really desired, like being on the outside of a group, even if she was, included and she, you know, could be included at any time, she really wanted to be invited in. She was very, very scared to go ask someone to play or to just jump into a group and be like, "Hey, I'm here. Let's go do this thing." She she felt it already in her body. Like, no, it feels really bad to move into a group like that. It feels much better if someone invites me in, if someone asks me to play. Um, and so that was a really interesting thing to notice. And so what what do I do differently about that? Right? Because there might be a lot of people listening who are like, well, yeah, that's just normal. You just have to teach them how to advocate for themselves. Yes. And
Hmm.
absolutely, this is a yes. And because she's noticing that it actually, like she's noticing that she wants the invitation.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can help her understand that that's what she's feeling and honor that, she'll be better at noticing the invitation her entire life.
Yes.
And then the other piece of that is like, okay, when you get an invitation as a projector, not every invitation is right for you.
Right.
And so sometimes when people come to the door and want to play, sometimes she's kind of maxed out. And
Sure.
and so I'll ask her, do you actually want to play, or do you want to stay in today? And her answer is good. Whatever it is, it's honored.
Yeah.
And so that, like she gets to feel in her body, I'm tired today. I don't want to go play. Great. That's awesome.
Yeah, so you're teaching her that skill early on so she can start trusting herself for the rest of her life. And she, I think as us as adults learning about this much later in life, really we have to almost rewire, like you said, it takes what, 7 years to kind of come to fullness, but for your kids, it's kind of special that they're learning this now while they're before they're thrown out of the nest and like navigating the world on their own and just, yeah, learning to honor themselves and their decisions. And I think that's really cool. That's a really
Yeah.
great anecdote for sure.
Thank you. Yeah. I think it's super important for projectors
Hmm.
too, though, because again, 70-ish% of the world are generators. And so, I mean, you're a projector too, right? You're a splenic projector
Everything
also,
that you're saying about Hazel, I'm like, this is me.
right? But you're made to feel,
Yeah.
you're made to like go be like the generators.
Yes.
Go advocate for yourself. Go do the thing you want to do. Go force, what it feels like is I need to force my way in.
Mhm.
I have to go, out. I have to go get it. Like you're never taught as a child during any of your development how
Right.
to wait for an invitation, how to recognize it, how to feel into, is this correct for me or not correct? And then move from that place. Instead, you're just taught to burn yourself out. And
Yeah, which
and
is,
now you have to unlearn it.
yeah. It's really, really interesting for sure. And I think too, what you were saying about your own family having 4 kids, you grew up with 4 kids and Adam had 3 in his family, and how parents, even though it's the same set of parents, but the kids all have kind of different needs and different ways they need to be seen. And, I think that's also something we're finding in the educational space is that, right, not one size fits all. It's not the same assessment, the same kind of assessment for every child. Some kids need more written, or some kids need to sing a song about it, or, right, there's like this whole differentiation now that happening out when professionals are working with kids. And so I think that's a great shift, and that human design will allow us to do that almost kind of in our own families, like to recognize that they might need slightly different parenting. Um, and that's okay because that's actually more fair to them than like the same measuring stick across the board for every single one of your kids.
Yes. And actually, that's such a good um, anecdote to put in here as well, or extra thing
Yeah.
to put in there. Oh, side note, Svetlana, you are a 1-3. You're a 1-3 splenic projector.
I am a 1-3. Man,
You are a
you
one
speak
three.
better than I
We were talking before. I was like, "You're 1-3, right?" And she's like, 2-4. Nope, you're 1-3. Um,
do. 4.
anyway, so so this is interesting. I'm going to ask you what
Okay.
you feel about this. So when we talk about education, one of the aspects. So this is me. This is my chart. If you're
Mhm.
watching on YouTube, um, and if you are looking at the chart, especially if you go again to expansiveceo.com and pull your chart from there, it'll look similar to the chart that I have here. So it'll have the 4 arrows around the head. If you look at the top left arrow. So I'm circling it right here. But if you go to the chart and you look at the arrow that's at the top left of the four, this is how, for you just for layman's terms, it's how you digest. It's your digestion arrow. It's how you digest food and information and take in life. It's how you take in life appropriately, like for you, for your type.
What do you mean by that? Do you and for example, I'm someone that has a very huge inner world and I'm always internalizing everything and I need lots of extra sleep to process that. Is that what you mean, or is this a different?
Yes, and actually,
Okay.
yeah, so yours goes the other direction. Are you okay
Okay.
if I show your chart?
Oh yeah.
Is that fine? Okay. So
Oh,
mine points to the left. And we'll talk about what this means. Um, and in this won't be on your chart if you pull it from the website. This is you have to get it from me when we work together. But my determination is direct, and that has something to do with it as well. Svetlana, your arrow points right. So
okay.
you're the opposite of me, and your determination is nervous. We'll talk about what that means.
I am nervous.
So that one, I would have to look that up to be able to tell you specifically what it means. But even just the left versus right is really interesting. So again, for me, I'm left facing in my determination. So this top left arrow, I am left facing. That means I take in information. I can take in a lot of different information, basically. And I'm very good at like pinpointing, here's the thing that I need and get rid of the rest. Right. So I
Nice.
can take in information from tons of different sources. I can organize it easily and be like, I need this, this, and this, let the rest go. This is also very indicative of, for most people who are left facing, that we're good at the traditional school system, the way, like kind of linear um, progression, taking concepts and like, okay, learn it one, two, three, very good in school naturally. And for me, when I read about that, I was like, that was totally me. School was easy. I had no problem. There were a few years where like homework was a little bit a lot, but I actually enjoyed doing homework. I mean, really, like,
Yeah.
I loved it.
Like you kind of liked working a system, it sounds like.
Right, right. I like fit really well into that system. Um, there's other developmental things that can go along with that, but just in general, that sequential learning was very easy for me. On the right, if you're right facing like you are, Svetlana, it's what you're doing. So a right facing arrow actually is a broad peripheral, like you take in information from everywhere. And
Mhm.
so what that means on the other side sounds similar to what I said for the left facing, but just stay with me. You
Yeah.
actually can take in tons and tons of information and it can be overwhelming.
Yeah. Yes. I've been thinking about that even the last few days. Just how
Hmm.
I am so overwhelmed with all this information out there. I literally thought that to myself. We were telepathically already planning for this.
Right. Yes, exactly. This is exactly what we're
That is
supposed
so
to talk about.
funny.
Yeah. So if you're right facing, it means you have the ability to, it's like if you open that, you know, door, you'll take in everything around you and you actually need to be very selective about your sources. Right. So it's like, okay, when I want to take in a little bit of news, I go to, these curated sources, people that I trust, and I don't need to take in all of it all the time.
Mm.
Or if I have, these, what's another good example? Um, like if you're an entrepreneur, like building a business and coaching, right? Like having one or two mentors that you follow versus having 30 or 40 different people that are like you're taking in information from everyone, right? Like it's better for you to limit the sources to really high quality sources
Right.
so that you can take in that information and let someone else be the filter for you first, the first filter,
And I wonder if other projectors could say this, but I feel very impressionable. Like I'm not like very I don't mean to say gullible, but it feels like that. Like anything I read, I believe it at face value. I trust it with all my heart.
Trusting.
And
Yeah.
then I just take it all in. So
Interesting. Yeah.
yeah,
And
I don't know if
then
other projectors could also say, or other right leaners could also kind of say that, but I'm very susceptible to everything that's out there.
interesting. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think the right facing arrow again, like you just take it all in, right? And then you have to really
like learn to
determine what's
manage.
correct for you or not
Yeah,
versus
interesting.
putting more filters on it
Yeah.
before it gets to you. The other thing about being right facing is that these tend to be non-linear learners. So
Hmm.
like not necessarily very well integrated into what's now known as the like traditional public school
Hmm.
system,
Right.
or even a private school that is even extra strict, right? Like that's even worse for
Mm.
our right facing kiddos. And so
More
I'm
like
curious.
Montessori or not.
Right. Yeah. Something that is more flexible, follows the child for sure. So I'm curious for you because there are a lot of us um who grew up, right? Like also just being like, I just have to do what I have to do.
Oh yeah.
And it's not that you wouldn't have been good at school, but how did that feel for you going through, I know you went through some like really strict school systems. How did that, or did you have a chance to even think about if it worked for you or
I
not?
never processed that. It was just it is what it is, and but yeah, like in the USSR, they're very strict. My first grade, I had to sit with my hands flat on the desk like this. I was only allowed to raise my right hand, and it was supposed to be at a 90-degree angle to my left hand. It was really intense, or it was extremely structured. You had to hold your paper. I remember this, my teacher explaining. We hold our paper at a 45-degree angle on with the corner with our left hand on the bottom corner of that paper. It was so like every little detail. And we had to learn how to write cursive in first grade, and
So
everybody's
early.
handwriting was exactly the same because they made you write in these little fine square grid to practice your cursive even. It was so intense. So that's how I started schooling. So when I came to America, it was definitely like, oh my, we're sitting on the floor with our legs crossed. There's color. I'm raising my hand over my head. Like, it felt so rebellious.
Oh my gosh. Well, and what's super interesting too is how you gravitated to Orff in
Oh
music.
yeah, you're right. Yeah, that more of that creative kind of yeah, the play and just let's see what happens versus follow
Right.
these structures. Yeah, that is interesting.
Because
Super interesting.
that's the way you teach now. And
Oh yeah. Yeah.
what comes up for me with that is like that's actually what you craved as a child because
Yeah.
that's what you're now teaching and what you believe so strongly that kids actually need.
Yeah. That is really fascinating. That's true. And they do need that. And I do see that for sure. But I
Hmm.
do also have kids who are like, no, let's skip the fun activity. I just want to play my piano. And I hold space for that too. And so now I ask actually, do you want to do the activity? Or do you just want to go ahead and jump on the piano? And I'll have students who will voice that for me. And then I honor that too. And so I don't feel rejected anymore.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
want
And
to
well, and
join
that's
the
and
game?
so what you're doing literally with that, and I'm just pulling up
Yeah, go for it.
Clara and Hazel's charts because um you also teach two of my daughters,
Yeah.
well, both of my daughters, in music lessons, and Clara is right facing. Her arrow goes is
Yeah.
right facing as well, and she is definitely like the non-traditional learner, very 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 smart, but
Mm-hmm.
always kind of like learning things in her own way, and I
Hmm.
think you can see that in her
And
lessons too.
yeah, she thrives a lot on when she has an idea that we can. expand on in the lesson, versus, yeah, if it's a song that clicks with her and she loves it, and it's like now we can roll with it 10 different directions because she's really into that one
Hmm.
song too, and she's excited to experience it. Absolutely.
Yeah. Where Hazel is a left facing,
Mhm.
um, on this arrow. And she does well with, she doesn't really like homework right now, but with the like the more structured, she really enjoys her lessons and really like enjoys the structure of it and having like we go
Mhm.
through this book and we go, step
Mhm.
by step and she's doing great.
I'm seeing the
Um,
progress. I'm seeing it over long term, and yeah, it feels good.
mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, and she doesn't really want to like try lots of different things like Clara does. She's like, no, I want to keep playing piano. Even when we move, she's like, I want to find a piano teacher and take private lessons and
That's amazing.
right. So that's like being able to know that about them
Yeah.
and not make it wrong
Hmm.
is so powerful and to help each of them in that exactly be exactly who they're supposed to be, right? And
Yeah.
to learn the way that they are meant to learn. And Henry is also a right facing there. So Henry and Clara are both right facing in that area. And again, man, that kid trying to get that kid to do homework is so hard. And trying to get him to do it when he had to show like if he can do a math problem in his head and he can just write down the answer and then you tell him to show his work, he just gets so worked up. He's like, I don't want to
Mhm.
do it that way. I already did it this way and it was right. I I understand. He also needs to learn the process, right? And there's a reason, right? I get
Sure.
it, but we can honor.
Yeah,
It's always a yes and.
that's good. That is so good. What about any kind of like discipline? I know that, we don't punish. Obviously, that's not a healthy thing to just like punish, but like, how do you find that you've had to set boundaries differently, maybe with some of your different kids? And do you want to speak a little bit on that?
Yeah, I think that's a good topic as well. And in parenthood and in parenting, like my husband is um again an emotional manifester. Um, there were times I would say, especially in the last few years, where we were trying to dial in like the help, especially for Henry, um, who also has ADHD and was having issues with anxiety as well. In addition to, he's on the autism spectrum, so is Clara, and he was having a lot, like really hard time processing his frustration. And for him, also as a generator, if we use that terminology, like the frustration is his cue that things are not right, something is misaligned. And his frustration would boil over into anger outbursts at school and therapy at home.
Mhm.
And gosh, when was this? I was just learning about human design, really. So this was especially, I think 2021 was kind of when it was the worst. I was just learning about human design, um, was also still figuring out my own tendency to hold the emotions of everyone around me. I'm not emotionally defined. And so I feel all of it and I feel it amplified. And if I am allowing that amplification, right, I can actually like make an emotional situation worse
Mhm.
by like adding fuel to the fire if I am not grounded and centered in
Right.
myself. Right. And so that was a big piece of what was happening is that I didn't realize, not that I was being emotionally reactive to him. Not a yeller, not a,
No,
punisher.
you're
I've
not.
never like no corporal punishment in my house. My husband and I have always been on um the same terms or the same team there. And And yet, right, like, yeah, the boundaries, the timeout, like I noticed that Adam, who is emotionally defined, he's better about being in his own emotional space. Henry would respond better to him, just in general, especially when he was really worked up, right? It's like Adam wasn't amplifying the emotional space the way that I was amplifying the emotional space for him. And I had to learn how to regulate
Mm-hmm.
myself. I had to learn how to um, be it almost feels like being the ocean, being the emotional, just letting all of the emotion be there. And
Yeah.
I don't have to interact with it.
Mm-hmm.
I can just let it. The way that I've taught others is to be a sieve instead of a sponge.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of soaking up all that emotional energy, just letting it drain through and noticing that it's there, like, oh, okay, I get it. But I'm
Right.
it's just flowing through versus me holding on to it.
Mm.
And once I really started getting in touch with that and learning that and practicing that over and over again, the relationship actually with Henry just got better
Mm-hmm.
automatically. He started being less reactive when I was not reactive to him. And Adam, I mean, for a while, Adam had to be the one
Yeah.
consistently, and he got a little bit tired of that. We had conversations around that too. Um, and at the same time, it was like that's just what we needed
Yeah.
so that I could learn how to be really like not just take the temperature because I was used to that. Again, if we talk about like going back to childhood, I was always very in tune with everybody else's emotions.
Mm-hmm.
I always knew what was going on in the house. There was a lot of volatile emotions in my house growing up.
Yeah.
Very, the trauma aspect of that, being hyper vigilant and
Mm-hmm.
hyper aware of an emotional situation. Right, you're also undefined in your solar plexus, so like this is similar, or it could be similar for you as well, right? Just being
Sure. Oh,
high,
absolutely.
yeah, like always taking the temperature, always like how do I stay safe? How do I keep everyone else from
Yeah.
blowing up?
Yeah. Still struggle with that. So calling
Yeah,
out
it's
here.
very it's
Yeah.
super super common with the undefined solar plexus.
Mhm.
But with my kids, right, it's different than when you're a child trying to like keep the peace among your siblings and parents. It's different from being the parent and
Yeah.
having to be the one that's, like you said, creating, helping someone become a good human, um, creating boundaries, helping them have boundaries for themselves, helping them create their internal system, like how they're working without without just kind of like being all over the place.
Right.
And so that's where that, again, that emotional barometer piece was kind of going out of whack
Yeah.
and was being more harmful than it was helpful.
Mhm.
So there's definitely a whole host of things that I was doing during that time. One, learning how to get out of people pleasing. That was a huge one, right? 'Cause people pleasing also leads to those exact same things of like making sure everything else is okay.
Yeah, managing everybody's emotions for them. And especially when it's your child, it's just hard to let them have their own emotions sometimes. You want to help. I think as a collective society, I think we I find that, we want to have our kids happy all the time.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
There's
Yeah, that something is wrong or we're
that thing.
failing as parents.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's easy to, instead of holding space for the child to have that emotion and not taking it personally, So that's really interesting how the human design has helped you with holding more space. And I'm sorry, I think I interrupted you, but I wanted to
Yeah,
interject.
no. No, it's perfect. It was
Okay, yeah.
perfect.
But that's
Yeah,
so
I mean
cool.
I mean it was so um again helpful and empowering for me to learn that, three of the people in my household are emotionally defined. Adam Clara and Henry are all emotionally defined. And so that's a lot of emotions
Yeah.
that they're having their emotional experience that they process differently than I process or that than Hazel processes. And I've
Mm.
noticed that Hazel is also super sensitive to everyone else's emotions. And so that's another thing. She is not emotionally defined. And that's another place where, we have really been intentional about helping her learn, teach her that it's not her job to
Yes.
regulate other people's emotions. Or, like she didn't make someone feel away. Like people have their own emotions, their own emotional reactions, and she is not responsible
Mm-hmm.
to manage other people's emotions. And I feel like a big win for me was when, um, Adam noticed it. I can't remember the exact situation, but I feel like he noticed it on his own once that she was doing that
Mm-hmm.
and was like also stepped in to help her. Like, that's not yours to carry. You don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
Um, and again, I can't even
That's
imagine.
powerful to even just know that about your kid. My
Right.
kid is picking up on my emotions right now, like, or their siblings, and just that's a huge lesson. How much of the population do you think is undefined emotionally? Do you know?
It's about 48.
Oh, so like half and half almost.
Yeah, it's a little over half are emotionally defined. So it's a lot. A lot of people are emotionally defined. But yeah,
So
so it's
if a child is emotionally undefined, what are some ways that you help them like figure out or help them with their emotions, I guess? So they're not picking them up from others, but they are finding their true core, like, what they want to feel.
yeah, and I think there's a lot that you can do just super easily. And again, this translates. I want to say, like, if you practice this with your kids, if you're an entrepreneur and you practice this with your kids or practice this with your spouse or partner, this translates to your clients. Like
Mm,
100%. This is a fully transferable skill.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
it's actually much easier to do with your clients than it is with your own family.
Hmm.
And so if you are practicing with your family, like it's amazing how easily you'll start picking up on these things with your clients. Um, because you are not as emotionally attached to them, right? So
Hmm.
you can have more separation, so you can see things a little more like high level.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, so it's very, very cool. So this is all super applicable and practical as
yeah.
well. But I mean, one of the things, whether they're no matter how they're defined, is to just ask them how they're feeling, or ask them, oh, this thing happened. How did that make you feel? What emotions are you feeling right now? And like actually get down
Yeah.
to those, like, oh,
So
I feel this way, and then they start trailing off like, oh, hold on, no, like tell me, like, how do you feel? How do you feel that in your body? That's a really, really, really powerful question. Where do you feel that in your body?
when I went to therapy during one of the worst times a few years ago in my life, and I just broke down sobbing in front of the therapist, and he asked me to give him some emotions that I was feeling. And I literally had zero vocab. Like all I had was mad, sad. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And although I was experiencing such a huge array of feelings and grief, and I literally had no vocabulary. And he literally he's like, go home and print an emotional, like a vocabulary wheel. And so that
Yeah.
we like learn these terms.
Right. Yes.
Like
Yeah.
that was so new to me.
Yeah. Yes, and it's so powerful to have the vocabulary. That's one. I love that. The emotional vocabulary wheel is so good. You can just Google that and
Yeah.
it'll pop up. It's all these different colors and four quadrants basically of like different happy, like mad, happy, or angry, sad, happy,
Yeah.
anxious maybe, or like the four main ones. And then there's like all these different shades
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
each type. And so having the vocabulary, and then where do you feel it in your body
Hmm.
also helps them connect, right? Connect with it in a different way, and then they can start to talk about it a little bit more. Um, and then, also I want to throw this anecdote out there
Yeah,
as well with Hazel. There are times, she's 9 right now. I find 7 to 10 to be kind of a sticky age, because they're wanting to be like more independent and more on their own,
hmm,
make, differentiate themselves, which is again developmentally appropriate.
hmm,
But there is like an aloofness and a like self-confidence, um has taken a little bit of a hit in some ways, like, oh, I just don't care about that, right? Like too cool for school type thing.
sure,
And then, right, like, so sometimes those things will start, so she won't want to engage with me in an emotional conversation.
yeah,
And then later on it just like all pours out.
yeah,
So just being there, taking the temperature of like, you want to talk? Can we talk about this right now? Or do we need to leave it alone for a little bit and come back to it? Right. Like, just knowing that it's never perfect.
mm-hmm.
They're not gonna like be like perfectly emotionally intelligent with you, even after
Yeah.
years of practicing.
It's such a learned skill, I feel.
Mhm.
I guess especially for us that are undefined.
Yeah.
How was it different parenting your kids who were defined?
Oh gosh, I feel like that was harder for me to understand,
Because you're
maybe.
undefined.
I'm undefined. It was harder to understand that. I mean, because I was taking in all of it. I was just taking in everyone's, of sponging. I was being the sponge for a long time. So I was just sponging
Sure.
up everyone else's emotions and just carrying them all. And then I'd be exhausted. Um, so, I mean, that's the thing. I guess if we were all undefined instead, I don't know. I don't know what that would feel like. uh, I don't
But
know if it would be easier or a
what
little
was it like
more.
to help your defined kids manage their emotions? Because you're saying Hazel is undefined, so it was like, hey, where do you think you're picking this up? And how are you feeling? Where is it on your body? You kind of have to help her like kind of figure it out versus your other kids have more, how was that? How did that manifest differently in your other kids that they were, since they are defined? I mean, do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, for example, if they had a rough day at school, like, did you still have to kind of carry them through that conversation, but in a different way because they're growing, right? And they're still kind of learning as well.
Yeah.
Like, how's that journey been with the ones that have been more defined?
Well, I think one of the things that comes up for me here, when I'm thinking about it, is
Yeah.
that they they do tend to kind of cycle through their emotional experience a little more quickly,
Okay.
um, and kind of get over it now. When they were little, that was more of an autism marker for me, is that they were,
Yeah.
for Henry and Clara, that their tantrums would be pretty
Yeah.
epic. Like they would go on and on and on, which we learn now is more of autistic meltdown,
Yeah.
versus just like a regular tantrum. So that was a little bit different when they were small. And as they've gotten older, I find it's really powerful. Like, again, a very similar thing helps them as well, is to identify what they're actually feeling, um, and then have a way to process it and move through that emotion.
Yeah.
Um, One example I'll give. So for Clara, she's 14 now. So she's actually starting her third childhood development phase. All right. So 0 to 7, 7 to 14, 14 to 21. Um, we're making a big move this
Yeah.
year. and she was feeling really not happy about it. She didn't want to leave. She doesn't want to move. And was like telling us, no, I'm just going to live in an apartment. And I'm like, honey, they're not going to rent an apartment to a 14-year-old. Uh, you can't,
Oh.
you can't stay. You got to come with us. Um, and one thing that she asked, which again was very emotionally intelligent of her, was she asked if she could talk to a therapist
That's
and if she
amazing.
could, right? Like she asked for that. So we searched for someone who's good with teens,
Yeah.
um, and found someone. And that has, again, from my perspective, there are a lot of things that, understanding that she doesn't want to learn from me necessarily. Like I can model it, we can talk about it, and she's very good at talking to me, but there are things that she wants to learn from other people.
Hmm.
Same with music, which was actually hurt my I when they were littler, it kind of hurt my feelings because I thought like, oh, I can teach them. I love to teach. I want to like,
You're right.
right? And they didn't want to learn from me. They want to learn from other
My
people.
child too. It's okay.
Right? It's
Yeah.
such an interesting thing.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, not to like I offer the support. I don't force it onto my kids. And if they want support in a different way, like talking to a teen specific therapist, like that has been amazing for her. That's exactly what she
Yeah.
needs. She knew what she needed and she asked for it.
That's so cool.
And that has really helped her have another outlet to like process those emotions that she's feeling and given her other tools. That even if her therapist Annie tells her the same thing that I've told her, she heard it from someone else. So,
Different. It's so different when it's someone outside and looking into your life. Yeah, for sure. It speaks differently. That
hmm
is so cool. I was just listening this morning to a podcast, and this guy was interviewing like a development specialist or some, and they were talking about how kids are just growing up differently, like than you and I grew up. But even like starting in the 90s, that's when kids parents became more cautious about letting their kids out, and their society changed with we're not as trusting of our neighbors anymore. It used to be that all the kids just played outside and you just knew that if something happened, they'd knock on a door and the stranger would call the police. Like you kind of trusted a little bit more than
hmm
we do now. Now it's like, I don't know who's my next door neighbor. I don't know. you know. But they were just saying how we as parents, we spend so much time, we think basically the gist of the conversation at this point that I've only listened to like a third of the podcast, but they were saying, they made a really good point about how kids were actually meant to learn from other kids about life, like just the ones that are just a few years older than them. And now we've taken it upon ourselves to
hmm
be that for them. But really, more it's our job as parents is to provide a safe, supportive environment, the place where they can come home and that attachment.
Right.
But really, like they are meant to like learn how to navigate life and like learn from just those that are a bit older than them, and I just thought that was an interesting thought because we take so much parenting in. We take so much responsibility as their parents. We want to spend the time with them. I hold myself to such a high standard, I want to play with her. I want to be her everything.
Right.
And just, I didn't realize just how you don't know, when you're in it, but just how much pressure we put on ourselves as parents to
hmm
try to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that to know that, yes, the village includes the other children. When we
Yeah.
say we need a village, it's not that we just need other parents and other adults to help. It's that they
Yeah.
need other children. That's part of the village. You don't imagine a village with just one child and 40 adults.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then this seems to be like what is sort of, unless our kids are going to school and whatever, they're getting more of that, whatever, homeschoolers or co-ops or whatever. But it seems to be, yeah, we think it's all on us to provide give them the best childhood
Yeah.
from our hand, but also just letting them have their life and like experience it and learn from others. And that's something that I don't know if this has much to do with human design, but that's something that I really had to learn when I went through my divorce is letting Zara have her own life. Even though she was 4, I had to let go and say, well, this is her story now, and I need to
Hmm.
work on my story. And
Right.
and letting go in some way too, and holding space for her journey. And I'm sure that that can be applied to human design. Like, this is how she's wired to, navigate the world, and it's going to be a little different from me. And she's not liking music the way I would love for her to like music.
Yeah.
But at the same time, recognizing she is her own human being and her own, yeah. So I don't know.
I think it's powerful. Have you pulled her chart yet?
We have pulled it before. I know you've said she's a projector, but
Is
I've
she?
looked at everything else. Yeah,
Oh, I can't
a
remember.
projector leading a projector.
Right? And
There
so,
you
oh,
go.
that's funny. I don't have it in here.
It's okay.
Um,
I remember I think we pulled it one time or something.
yeah. So maybe pull it again or give me her
Well,
information again and we'll look. But yeah, that's also the more you learn about yourself again, right? Like you get to help her see what's an invitation. What does
yeah,
that mean? What does it mean to feel and listen to your intuition
yeah,
about if that's correct for you or not? And like helping her see that also helps you
yeah.
recognize it better as well.
Yeah, and I'm just curious about how, our kids are grown, like we grew up in a different time than our parents and, than their parents, and our kids are navigating a different world than we did growing up, and I'm curious how human design helps them, and maybe even more than ever now. Like, knowing
Yeah.
that human design might be a very very useful, very powerful way for them to navigate this kind of seemingly uncertain world. But I feel like it was always, people would say the same thing, 50 years ago. Oh, it's so uncertain and it's blowing up. So I don't
Right.
know, but yeah, what
Yeah.
are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I think this will be a great final thought. It's that yes, the world has always had some level of uncertainty, right? When we talk about 50 years ago, gosh, in the 70s, this is crazy to think, that was when computers were starting to really come online. People weren't having them in their homes yet, right? But that was kind of the start of this technological revolution. Um, and then in the 90s is when it's really picked up. So 30 years ago, 90s, 2000s, we had this whole big technological revolution where like computers are going to take away jobs, right?
Mm,
People are like, what are our kids going to do? Because computers are going to take away all the jobs. And now what do we have now? AI. What are our kids going to do? Because AI is going to take all the jobs.
wow. Yeah.
And so we do have these things that rhyme with history, right? We've been through
Yeah.
these kind of things before. And just like with the computer revolution, the technological revolution, really in the 90s and 2000s, the people that have been able to really thrive are the ones that know how to use technology to make things better. And so it'll be the same with AI. It's like AI itself can't right now doesn't run itself. It takes a very skilled human to understand how to help it apply, how to make it useful in a
Mm,
business sense or in life. So one, it's that it will help if you know your human design and you know your child knows their human design, it could literally help them understand how they're meant to interact
yeah.
with technology, with the world, um, how they're, if you're a projector, you're not meant to be doing all the doing, right? You're meant to be guiding, like seeing how systems work and then seeing how they can be made better. Um, if you're a generator, you are here to be doing the doing, but it needs to be doing that you're passionate about, that you're excited about, right? If you're a manifester, it's like when you have those new important ideas, those are meant to be shared. Those are meant to be like life changing and course changing. Um, Manifestors are only like 8 to 9% of the population, so they're not very many. Um, so yeah, but if you know that about your child, that they're a manifester and they have big ideas and you can't tell them what to do ever, like, yeah, that's a manifester. If
That's
you let
it
them,
is what it is.
right? If you let them live into it versus like constantly like trying to get them to fit in,
Yeah.
they will thrive more in the future.
Yeah. Like you don't raise your kids the way well, it worked on me, so I'm gonna raise them the same way or whatever, right? Like to stay more curious about.
Right. Right. Especially, so again, 70% of the world are generators. So if you have children who are generators, that's enough, so important. Like, what are they actually like when they're working on something and they don't want to stop? What is that thing? And just
Mhm,
notice that
mhm,
and encourage that, feed that. Like,
mhm.
let them be excited about things and let them do the things. Try to give them more of that. Right. So even in
Yeah.
I did this with my littles, when they were Henry learned how to read. He was obsessed with space. Loved space. So he learned how to read, he learned how to count, he learned so many things because we just put it all into we had a big floor rug that had the solar system and he learned his letters from the
Mhm.
rug and we had big maps of the solar system on the wall and he would learn numbers because of that, right? He was obsessed with it, so we fed into it,
Channeled it, yeah.
right? And let him, and then when he was obsessed with Star Wars, right? He's learned so much stuff from Star Wars. um Rather than being like, okay, you can do your math homework and then you can do, right? Like, let's integrate
Yeah,
these things as much as we can, because your generator child will do more willingly, more excitedly. He or she will learn faster if you incorporate the things that they're actually excited about.
that's so cool.
Yeah, that was a big one. That was a big one from when they were little for sure. And still, I mean, still works to this day.
Yeah.
It's very powerful.
Mhm.
Okay, we got to wrap this one up.
All right. It was
Thank
really
you.
fun. Of course.
Yeah, and again, an encouragement, if you have not pulled your kids' charts or your partner's charts or your parents, if you want to find out what your parents are, again, you can at least use their birthday and date and place, and just go with noon if you don't know their actual time. But if they say, I think I was born in the afternoon or I think I was born at night, like, use that. And then you'll get closer to their correct design. But yeah, especially with your kids, look at their birth certificate, or if you were the mom and you remember,
Yeah, of
I remember when all my kids were born. So
course. And send us any questions so we can continue our human design dialogues. I think they're so interesting.
yes, absolutely. Yeah. If this sparked any questions for you, or if you have, your child or your spouse or your business partner, you're like, "Ugh, I'm this and they're that. And like, tell us, like, I would love to even maybe entertain, like, let's come have someone else
Listener
on.
questions or yeah,
Yeah.
or even like a little coaching or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
If that lit up anything for you, let us know. I'd love to talk about it. So thank you again, Svetlana. It was so good to
You.
spend time with you,
You.
and we'll see you next time.
Yep.
That's it for this episode. Thanks for listening, and be sure to like and subscribe. And again, if anything resonated with you from this episode, I would love to hear from you. Email me at Hannah, HANNAH, at expansiveceo.com and tell me about it. And if you're ready for your greatest expansion, you can find ways to work with me at expansiveceo.com and at x2wealthplanning.com. That's X, the numeral 2, wealthplanning.com. So until next time, remember that there is enough, you are enough, and your birthright in this lifetime is to be expansive.